There is no doubt that the plant of the future will be vastly different from what is currently in operation today. In all likelihood, it will be fully electric and perhaps fully autonomous. Accountability for greenhouse gases and carbon neutrality will be required and monitored closely by all stakeholders. Does this seem difficult? Perhaps. But just as manufacturing evolved, so shall digitalization provide managers and end users new tools. Digital twins will provide the capability to understand what is happening and where it is happening. Enabling these technologies, the digital twin provides the next step in the evolution of manufacturing processes by providing the work surface of the future. It will enable companies to integrate and enhance the required business processes, enable faster decision-making, and increased levels of sustainability and profitability.
That's a fantastic video. I'm joined by Shane McArdle, Senior Vice President of Production for KDI, Kongsberg Digital. Thank you very much, Shane, for joining me once more after the fascinating panel. I'll tell you what, it's really interesting when you do these digital twin panels, and you could probably run 15 of them in a day, and you learn something each time. I think one thing I would probably say about that one is interesting that people we're raising the points about technology versus human. Is it replacing the human? And I think that video was quite good because it talked about the connection between sustainability, human interaction and technology. And I think it should encourage jobs more so than anything else. But it was a brilliant discussion. And I think it was really important from the downstream perspective, what it means to adopt a digital twin. I loved your 2 points. I always watch out for you, Shane, and see what particular points you raised. There were 2. There was user empathy, which I loved, and there was letterbox analytics. So I know that I'll always learn something from you every time you actually go on stage. So well, let's ask a few questions, because I'm very keen to sort of understand your input on this. We've been running this event for a few years, as you know. You've been a really good sort of supporter of the event as well. And I think we talk perennially about digital technology. Where are we on this? Because every year we talk about the implementation of digital. Has it reached a tipping point? Is there a tipping point? Has it just begun? Is the jury still out? What's sort of your opinion on digitalization as a whole?
Yeah, great to be here again, Adam, and thanks for having me on. It's a good point, and if you just the previous session, I was really enthused because there was a lot of operators on that panel, and they were talking about how they're implementing digitalization, and they're not talking about, oh, we tried, we failed. They're saying we give up. We're saying, yeah, we tried, we made some mistakes. We have a more pragmatic approach to it. We have tempered expectations, but we're still heavily engaged, and that lends a lot of confidence to where we are as an industry. We do know we need to use it. I have to say we've definitely reached a threshold, and I believe we are demonstrating value across the board. There's a lot of digital companies out there now that are well established, offering a lot of value into the market. We see a lot of uptake of digitalization by the downstream market and other parts of the oil and gas value chain. And over the last couple of years, as we deployed digital twins across the industry, what I've really experienced is it's not just about the technology, and it's really about the change management that goes hand in hand with it. And you mentioned that in your opening address, Adam, and I'm sure we're going to hear about it over the next couple of days. And this is why user empathy is so important, at least from an industrial software provider. We put our experiences into the codified into our software. So we have a very good mix of industrial subject matter experts and software developers, because this is industrial software that we're building to be adopted by an industry with very specific needs. And this change that we see, it's not just a path towards implementing digital technology as fast as possible. It's not just about that. Companies need to provide employees not only with the right tools and the right partner to deliver those tools, but they need to lift the skill set for long-term sustainable adoption of the technology, which is really important for us, of course, but also from an employee retention point of view. Just as a guidance point, a few years ago, 2017, 2018, there was the Gartner hype cycle, this curve, yeah. And they had digital twins on the technology trigger side. So, halfway up the first peak. Now, if you look at where it is now, this is only within 4 or 5 years, is now trending towards the plateau of productivity. Now, does that mean that it's extensively pervasive in the industry? No, but it's a very interesting guideline for us as an industry on where and how the adoption of at least a digital twin is happening across the board. And just one piece there, Adam, to follow up, you mentioned about the user element, and I think this is so key. I briefly touched upon it in the previous panel where we talked about Industry 4.0, where it was all about convergence of IT and OT. Industry 5.0 is where we empower people again. And a digital twin is where we put people central to that technology. It's so fundamental to the principles, at least of what we're trying to do from a digital twin perspective. And it's not about focusing on connecting machines. The focus is on delivering a user experience, because at the end of the day, it's people who's going to use this. And then that's really, really important. You don't want to distance humans from the technology. You want to put them back central to the technology. And just to give a data point on this, a couple of weeks ago I was attended another conference where Shell were giving a talk, and they talked about, from their perspective, where they were with digitalization. They're now at the end of the beginning. And I had to think about that when they say, right,
I have to think about that as well.
Yeah, and that, I thought it was really smart, because the next phase is going to be really exciting. It's about scaling the next phase. We've made our mistakes. We know what works. We have a kind of a good path towards what we want to do. And the next phase is really about scaling and moving a lot faster.
It's an interesting point you said about the technology, because, you talk about the plateauing of digital twin, because I think with these events, we always cover what AI, machine learning, blockchain, all of these sort of fancy new words that were 10 years ago. And now we're sort of thinking, how do they get implemented? At what stage are they now, 10 years later? And I sort of agree with you on this, because I think digital twin, yes, it might plateau, but now if it plateaus, there's a whole new set of questions that need to be answered about how do you implement, like you said, how do you involve your staff? How do you buy into them working on technology? It's a new age we're going into now than it was, 5-10 years ago when you run an oil and gas operation. So you're talking about a seismic change in role quite quickly over the last few years. And I think that's going to be another sort of new step in digital twin. Can I sort of mention, because obviously this is a downstream event. We were on the Future Digital Twin a month ago, which covered mainly upstream, a little bit of downstream, but predominantly upstream. For the downstream side, where do you think digitalization will make the biggest impact?
Yeah, you mentioned all these buzzwords, Adam, AI, blockchain, etc. And that's an enabler. It really is. And I also said that, 20 years ago, I worked in this industry. I came out of it and then moved into more the software side of things. But, I've walked lines, walked systems, written work orders. I've done this for a chemical facility. It wasn't an upstream oil and gas facility. And the measure of success for me and my team is really how we have fundamentally changed how individuals work and how the industry works. Right, so it's not about, I implement a digital twin across thousands and thousands of users and 50 assets. It's really about how we've changed traditional work models, because traditional work models don't provide the agility, don't provide the scalability or resilience required by the future assets that are coming online now. And I think it was Mohammed previously talked about, shifting towards biorefineries, using more green energy and electrifying these facilities. That's not going to make things easier. That's going to make things more complex. In an already very tightly and fragilely, I would say operated industry. So digitalization is going to have to be a part of that in order for it to be operated and maintained in a very, I would say, functional manner. So for us, the future work is about rethinking the way work gets done. It's not about Henry Ford's adage, they want a faster horse. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to take what you do with your clipboard and with your ring binder folder and just put it into the cloud. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to fundamentally change how that piece of work is done. And I mentioned about isolation planning in the previous session. That's a very manumatic job. But we can automate all of that away. And it's really cool because it then is a fundamental shift in the work model. It fosters the human-machine collaboration because you have to go into the twin to get this piece of work done. People are drawn to it. It's made their job easier. It enables new skills, and those skills don't have to be like, you don't have to be an operator one day and a data science the next day, but you can leverage the insights that data science brings. It gets a new worker experience. It supports intelligent, dynamic behaviors and a new environment, and that's completely unbounded by your physical location or time or anything like that. So where work and technology meet and overlap, it has a multiplying effect, and that's where I see the biggest impact is going to be down the line. And I see a lot of robotics coming into the downstream industry, and I can't remember the name of the guy where he talked about them as cobots, not robots, because they're not.
Oh, his name's
it's brilliant, but it doesn't scare people away on the shop floor. It's about this tool. It's a tool. It's just a new tool instead of your wrench. It's just a new tool that's going to help you do your job safer, more sustainably, and better. And then you can elevate intelligence. Rather than just always going, I have to focus on this. I'm 100% or I'm 150%. I don't have time to focus on what you're trying to bring in. Let the technology do the work for you. Take the heavy lifting. So you have time with all your experience, with all your knowledge, to be able to focus on some of the new challenges that are coming. And I think that's for me at least, coming directly from the industry for a long time, is where I see the biggest impact and where I get the biggest reward and haptic feedback, let's say, when we manage to do something like that.
I think it's a very, very wise words, because the more information that's out there in the market about technology, the better it is for the users. And I think there is misinformation, there's a misconception, there's a lack of understanding on what this type of technology brings and what digitalization brings to downstream, because I still think there's a little bit of a stigma, because downstream is behind upstream. We sort of know that, upstream is extremely adoptive, and you can see how companies operate in sort of a different way, albeit, you've got a finer margins that you work with in downstream. So it's tougher for them to maybe put the outlay in. But I think as upstream progresses, downstream will see that as a bit of a test to say, you know what, you're doing really well because of this implementation, let's say, of a digital twin. We want to maybe look at that and see what we could do. And it was interesting what you said earlier about, things like the phalanges. I mean, 30% of what emissions coming from that. No one would think of that. And you think, what can monitor that? What can stop that? What can help that? What can facilitate that? And you think this will help. This will help put your costs down dramatically, So it's a really interesting time, I think, we're doing the downstream. What one sort of last question, Shane, I would ask you, what words of advice would you give anyone on this event? Because obviously we've got, like, let's say 2 days coming up, talking about different elements of digitalization. You mentioned obviously about change management, which I think is a massive part of the whole technology adoption side of things. What advice would you give participants? That's what I want to know.
Okay, we're here for 2 days. There's a lot of experts here. You set up a fantastic event. It's wonderful, Adam. Learn from each other. Industry-wide knowledge sharing allows us to move past challenges that have been solved, so we can focus on innovating for long term. I still talking to people in the industry who are innovating around challenges that are already solved, like data ingestion, data contextualization, data quality. That's a solved challenge. Why focus on that? Look, move forward, move past these challenges and start innovating around the areas that are actually going to bring value to you, and learn. Ask people, what have they done? Lots of people have made mistakes here. We've made mistakes. I'm sure a lot of operators made mistakes. Learn from those mistakes and try to move forward. So I think that's really, really important for the next 2 days. Take advantage of it. We're part of something called the Open AI Consortium. So like Microsoft, C3 AI, Databricks, different types of technology companies, and Shell are part of this, where we're all there to provide a value add. And what I love about this consortium is all of these companies, we may have some competing overlaps in some areas, but at the end of the day, we're trying to look for that value add for the industry. So C3 and ourselves is really interesting MVP, let's call it, where we integrated their technology platform with our technology platform and rolled it out on a downstream manufacturing facility. And just to see the impact of that, that we were able to bring into the market was really exciting. And we both learned from each other. And we have this really good foundation, and we're trying to add in more and more companies. So learn from each other, understand what's done and already out there, and innovate on top of that would be the first point I would say over the next 2 days. Stop thinking about POCs. You and me, we talk about this, Adam. There's silos. You're embedding them into silo programs. You know, don't integrate people, processes, technology. It doesn't, right? You need to change up your mindset. You need integration of business processes. Look at the change management and applications. So really focus on that, and talk to companies that have demonstrated the capability to build industrial software and roll this out. Then you don't need to spend too much time on your POC side. There's, as I said, there's a lot of tech companies out there now with proven deliverables out in the market. Talk to them, understand what they're doing. Focus on product. POCs is what I would end up with there, and always have users at top of mind. And this is why we talk about user impact. It's not just about that killer application or that very, very accurate algorithm. People have to use this technology. So that's a little bit about thinking the business case, the business strategy at scale, the users of this technology, where you're going to have the biggest impact. So this user empathy is really important, and you need a right partner who understands the user side, but also how the digital side, let's say. So that's extremely important, that you also test that over the next couple of days as well. So yeah, really look at that industry-wide knowledge sharing, move away from POCs, and really focus on products and the people who have the capability or proven capability of deploying them, so you can learn from those people.
They're fantastic takeaways, Shane. It's been a pleasure having you. It's always a pleasure having you, but it's really, I like having these conversations with you because I feel we get the chance to maybe get a bit deep into some of the key issues of digitalization. I think I like them. I think it's good for me, good for the audience, and it's good for the event. So thank you very much, Shane, for joining us. Kongsberg are the official digital twin partner for the event as well. So please go and see them at the virtual booth and also contact Shane. But thanks a lot, Shane, for your input.
Thanks very much, Alan.
Thank you. Fantastic. What a brilliant start to the day. We will now be moving on to a networking break, and then we move on to the next panel, which is a very key area, key topic at the moment for the downstream sector, focusing very much on decarbonisation and innovation. So I will see you back at 11:10.